All right, thanks, Ellen. It's time for my final thought. Now, police have identified that a second survivor of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, Calvin Desir, died Saturday of an apparent suicide. Now, this comes a week after another Parkland survivor, Sydney Aiello, took her own life, and days after Jeremy Richmond, a father of a Sandy Hook school shooting victim, also committed suicide. Now, all too often we grieve for the lives of those lost in the aftermath of a school shooting. But what goes overlooked many times is the impact these incidents have on the survivors who have to pick up their lives after enduring something so traumatic. Now, navigating through the aftermath of a mass shooting is terrifying and is something I wouldn't wish on anybody. These young men and women of Parkland, as well as the parents and survivors of Sandy Hook, have suffered the type of trauma that people experience in war zones. As a result, the PTSD and survivor's remorse is just as real, maybe more so, because these are not people who signed up or are trained to experience the horrors of combat. Not to mention that since both tragedies have been politicized, many have been victims to further attacks on social media, television, and some even in person. Now, I'd imagine that no amount of therapy can truly erase memories like that. One can only hope that these men and women receive as much care and support as possible in moving forward with their lives. I know Valentine's Day will never be the same for the students and faculty of Marjory Stoneman Douglas. Now, as much as we praise these kids for their bravery and initiative to push the conversation onto the national stage, let's not forget they still are in fact kids. They need our comfort and support. Thoughts and prayers are insufficient. And if you or somebody you know needs help, call 1-800-273-8255 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You can also text HOME, H-O-M-E, to 741-741 for free 24-hour support from the Crisis Text Hotline. We're going to continue this conversation online. You guys have a beautiful Thursday. Get up, DC.